What's going on? Don't remember if I talked about this in a previous video or not, but about 2 months ago, yes, 2 months ago, realized that transferring, even with the camera in the correct mode, for some reason trying to transfer directly from the camera to the iPad without the powered adapter for the USB 3 to Lightning adapter, transferring video off of the camera, because it's if you've ever tried transferring video and stuff from an RX100 to an iPad, it's not the most seamless of tasks. So realized need some kind of better adapter, some kind of better solution to this. I could use the powered adapter, power it with a battery bank, and be okay. But I really wasn't a fan of that solution, so I started looking around, and it brought me back to something I had looked at a while back, but decided, I just don't have a need for that. And I started looking at it again. It was the RAV Power File Hub. Picked that up, and that actually works well for what I want, because I can put the memory card into it, power it up, then put the memory card into it, connect to it with Wi-Fi on my iPad or my phone or whatever, or computer, anything, and transfer the media directly over. Or I can put a external hard drive or a flash drive into it, do a one key backup to it, for travel. It can do a lot of stuff that some things I'll probably never use, like using it as a router or as a Wi-Fi extender. I doubt I'll ever use those features, but nice to have, for travel. Um, in a scenario, if you maybe go somewhere and they have Wi-Fi, but you can't figure out how to connect to their wireless, or they didn't give you a password, just bring a little patch cable with you, and there you go. Um, Other thing I want to talk about, that was kind of, I guess you could say, housekeeping stuff. Just trying to make it easier to get the vlogs done. The other thing I want to talk about is just an annoyance with the DJI drone. I really, really wish there was a way, and understand the Mavic Mini is the budget, it's the least expensive one they have. So there's a lot of features that the higher priced drones do have that the Mavic Mini doesn't have, and some of it I think is because it doesn't have the sensors in there, and I mean, you can kind of argue why it doesn't have stuff, and why you know why they kind of have implemented some settings and abilities, but not others, and they have, because like someone was saying, it has the quick shots, but it doesn't have like active track and stuff like that. But then I think one of the quick shots kind of will track, so there, but a lot of, that's not the purpose, and that's not my main gripe. My main gripe is the geofencing. I understand, and it makes sense, for newer flyers, children, not, teenagers, stuff like that, people that may not be as familiar with different things, and realizing that they need to check the airspace that they're flying in and know the regulations surrounding that. And maybe, even adults and stuff like that. But, I think for some people it's good to have, but I think for others, the people that know where they can and cannot fly and stuff like that, it's another step that just causes aggravation. For lack of a better word, it's an aggravation. Um, if I know I'm flying in restricted airspace or limited airspace, I'm using those terms loosely. I know I need to get proper approval, and I need to fly within that approval. It would make sense to me if they had the geofencing implemented where it integrated more with, like the Kitty Hawk app, or had some direct ability to acquire Lance approval through the DJI app. But I still need to go, if I'm flying in airspace where I need approval, I still have to gain that approval before I can fly. So once I have that approval, I'm permitted to fly within the restrictions of that approval. So why do I need to go and I get it, it's not a complicated process, but it's an extra process. And it's a process that is basically, like I equate it to, is it's a toy company saying what I can and cannot do. You know, you're not the FAA, you're not the aviation regulatory agency in that particular country. I'm in the U.S., so for me FAA. But whatever aviation governing body is in other countries, they're the ones that you need to get approval through, not a toy company giving you approval. And it's just my frustration with it. I mean, I wish there would be a setting you can go in there and just disable geofencing and not deal with it. There's other companies that produce drones without geofencing. Maybe they're targeting more of the experienced market that says, hey, I know when I don't need a system telling me what I can and cannot do. I know what I can and cannot do. And then my other issue with it is that, there may be stuff in there that they have. I mean, and I've heard people saying this, where they're like, in the app it says, I can't fly here, I need approval here. But when you look at other stuff, before you fly, the app before you fly, or Kitty Hawk, it's saying, no, it's not, airspace where you're going to need approval. So, stuff like that, I have heard that issue. Yeah, that's just. Other than that, I've really been enjoying flying that little thing. Have been looking at other drones. Have been, the first time I flew the drone, I hit takeoff. It was definitely interesting. It was like the thing just takes off. It's going up to like I think it goes to 1.2 meters, and to tell you the truth, it's kind of like, okay, you know, you concerned that things gonna just do something crazy, and because other than a cheap, I had bought and I say cheap, I mean cheap. It had a little camera on it, but it was basically you had to aim, what where you wanted it pointed, up or down before you took off, and it didn't have any kind of autofocus. You had to sit there and turn the front of it. It was totally a toy. But it had no kind of you know auto hover or any kind of GPS positioning on it. It was so it was just it was you'd hit the throttle, and I'm gonna call it the throttle, but you'd hit the stick to go up, and it would go up, and it was really hard to control. So that was my experience going into the Mavic Mini, but it was totally the opposite. And the more I fly it, and the more I'm getting used to flying in different spaces. You know, out by my parents, there's plenty of space that I can fly. But I have flown in some more restricted confined spaces, smaller yards and stuff like that, just to kind of work on that, work on the fine control of it. When you're flying out in the middle of a wide open field, you have plenty of space to maneuver and stuff like that. Whereas when you're working in more confined places, it to me, I think it helps to hone your flying skills. I think also, not just flying in small areas, but flying in larger spaces, flying at different distances from yourself, you know, obviously with abiding by regulation of keeping sight of the drone, but that is one thing I'm probably looking at doing in the future, is to wrap the drone, because the color it isn't the easiest to see. So think maybe wrap it, or at least the underside of it. Well, probably just the underside. I don't see a point to wrap it the top of it. The top's not going to be visible if you're beneath, if you're below it on the ground, obviously. But I think doing something like that would aid in visibility when you're flying it. Maybe it won't, because it is still at the end of the day a very small drone. Which is one thing I do kind of, looking at the Autel brand of drones. I do, a couple people were like, they wish they were saying, oh, I wish they'd have gone with, black or a gray or something like that, not this Chevy engine orange. But I think having that brighter color makes it easier to see, when flying. I haven't flown one, but I do see where that color would be of a benefit. Anyway, I think that's about it for today, or for now. Anywho, thanks for watching, and have a good one.